Hello and welcome to the Pain Points podcast. I'm your host, Christian, and today I'm very honored to have Julie Ethan. She is the Director of Education for the Painting Contractors Association, also known as PCA, more familiarly known as PCA. Julie, welcome to the Pain Points podcast.
Thank you, Christian. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, so Julie, just to give everyone a little bit of history, you and I actually met at Expo in Orlando. That was back in 2022. I think you guys started doing the gamification, and we started, I was trying to get a couple answers from you, to be honest.
Yeah.
But towards the end of Expo, I started talking to you then about this brainchild that I had, which we now know as the Pain Points podcast. So it's just kind of cool to have you being the first person that I actually spoke to outside of my wife about having a podcast idea, to have you as a guest. So I'm very honored to have you.
Thanks. I love how things come full circle, because you were really trying to hunt me down at Expo to get this answer. And the staff was like, there's this guy looking for you. And I'm like, what? Yeah. His name is Christian Bale. He has a question. They didn't tell me it had anything to do with gamification. He has a question. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But we did connect. And I think you eventually got your answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't win that year, but I think it was a fun way for people to interact, and really, really cool. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Julie, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you wound up at PCA, why you do what you do and how you do it?
Wow, that is a long, winding road. I will try to make it brief.
Okay.
My original vocation was in nursing, and I married a painting contractor. And after we had several children, I decided that it was easier to work in his business than go in for night shifts as a nurse. So I started to do that, and I discovered that I actually had a knack for business administration and structure, and I actually really liked it. So
you never got on the brush?
No, I didn't. But that's what's funny about me being putting together the painter training program, is that eventually I became a full partner in 2004. We bought out my husband's brother, and once I became a partner, then we started to really get coaching and get on track with how we were going to train our own painters. And it was just, I think I'm pretty much a natural teacher / learner. So I really enjoyed the process of breaking all the skills down and teaching them to our painters, or having our, eventually our personnel manager and trainer do it. So that's kind of my background in painting. Back then I was involved with the residential forum through the PCA, the Painting Contractor Association, and was the president of that for a couple of years. But then the recession happened. And that was not kind to our business.
And so we're talking 2008, 2009? 2008.
And really it just kept going through 2010. 2010 is when we actually held an auction to sell.
Now, where were you guys located during this time?
We were
period?
in Eagan, Minnesota, which is south of St. Paul.
Okay.
And we served mostly a remodeling contractor clientele, but also we were early pioneers in the refinish your cabinet thought process.
Right.
Yes. So we had a spray booth, we had air intake systems, we had a little forklift. I mean, we had a lot of things that were meant for growth, and instead we saw the opposite happen.
Right.
So that was sad, but we didn't lose the business. It just downsized greatly. And at that point, the business actually didn't need me. So I walked away for about a decade, and came back as a staff member with PCA, which is so amazing how painting will just never let you go. I swear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, talk about, I think that's today's theme is just things coming full circle, right?
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you originally find out about PCA? You said back before the recession, you were in charge of the residential forum. So when did you first find out about PCA?
Well, in the Twin Cities, we actually had a chapter. It was mostly union contractors, but I was so hungry for education, even back in the late 90s, that I started going to their meetings. And eventually the union left it was called the PDCA. And
Mhm.
uh, at that point, I founded a residential chapter in my area. And we started having regular meetings uh, back then. And it's interesting because now this is coming full circle and people are starting to do these gathering groups instead of the
Yeah.
chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna
So,
say you're the OG Gomp gathering of Minnesota painters, right? How cool is
right.
that? Yeah. I think
Yeah.
this month in Florida, in Orlando, they're gonna be having the first gathering of the Florida painting contractors. So that'll be really exciting. If you're listening to this and you are in Florida, join the Facebook group Florida Painting Contractors. You can sign into that group and get some more information on that event that's coming up April 24th. So super exciting that movement is really catching on state by state. So now fast forward to, you said 10 years, 2018, around that time, you started working for PCA. What role did you start at with PCA?
Well, actually, I didn't start with PCA until about the middle of the COVID pandemic.
Okay.
But in 2018, what happened is my husband Larry and I sold the painting business in Minnesota and made a big life-changing move to San Diego, which is where I currently reside.
Awesome.
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
So we had raised the kids and we had got them all out of the nest, so we were ready for a change of just about everything. So we're here in San Diego, and the business did really well. We sold it to a former employee, and it's still thriving. Although he didn't keep the name. He just bought certain assets.
Right.
And so yeah, I was working with topics more related to immigration at the border here in San Diego when COVID came and sort of took that away. And then about, gosh, however many months, 8 months later, I got an email from my old friend Nigel, who is the current executive director of PCA, asking
Hmm.
if I happen to be working. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not working right now. And that's how it got started. And so I was hired on to specifically create uh, a painter training program for contractors.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
And we know that now as the elite training courses. Is that correct?
No, it's just called painter training, but they are
Painter training.
online.
Yeah.
Right, right,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
right.
really good programs. I know when I had my direct hires in 2021, I that was part of my onboarding process, was to bring them on, teach them in the field, because the shop wasn't fully up and running. We didn't have a training facility in our shop, but training them on the job and then reinforcing all the great habits that we were trying to teach through the online management system. And that's kind of what you were wanting to talk about today, was onboarding new employees, right?
Right. Yeah. I think that just like what you were talking about there.
Yeah. So, so you were in charge of creating the curriculum for some of these, or for the painter training that PCA currently has. Why? So you said that Nigel, the executive director of PCA recruited you to accomplish this task specifically, why did and I'm going to ask you to speak for Nigel, but why did he feel, or did the painting association, painting contractors association, why did they feel that this was important enough to bring on a new staff member for it?
I think it was something that they had aspirationally been trying to do and trying to find the right person. And I think I brought together all of the qualities that were needed. First of all, having contracting experience, having onboarding and training experience with actual painters, having
Right.
created our own program using videos. And then I also had that piece of understanding how to place courses into a learning management system, which is part of our program. Is you can earn a certificate for going through each course. So it
Yeah.
kind of brought together a lot of things that they needed, and then they let me run with that. It took almost a year and a half because everything also is in Spanish.
Okay.
And then that's what, after it was complete, I transitioned into director of education. So a little bit more broad umbrella, reaching into business training and events where we have education. And so a lot more categories.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially with the painting industry as a whole, it's just such a highly segmented, smaller business setup to where many painting contractors, including myself, are doing infield training and just not having any resources outside of watch what I do. Now you do it. Now I'm gonna watch what you do, and then go off on your own. So I think it's been a really good supplement to that. I've been seeing on on Instagram and even on Facebook in some of the groups, there's been a big shift in the way that people are training. The way that I'm doing it seems to be the way of yesterday. Do you have any comments, or have you noticed anything about how training has changed or is changing in our industry?
Yes, but I doubt there's any old-fashioned way of doing it. I think training is changing just like everything has changed with the dawn of YouTube how-to videos.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently wrote an article for APC magazine talking about training painters and how my son went hunting, shot a deer, and then opened his phone, went to YouTube, and how do you field dress a deer? Right there was like
Wow.
learning by watching and then doing. And I mean, that's definitely the way we tend to do things these days. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we paired that with also the encouragement of so you can learn painting in many different ways, or there's different learning styles. You certainly can watch a
Absolutely.
video,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to teach you like the weight of paint in a bristle as you bring it to cut in a ceiling line, and it's not going to teach you how far you can push that paint along the ceiling line before you have to dip it back into the brush.
Right.
So, there are just some things you have to learn by doing them. And I think the interesting trend I'm seeing is that people are, first of all, more interested in having some kind of assistance with training instead of just putting the new people out in the field the first day and saying, hopefully you can be useful. So what we did is we took, how to for each of the prep skills and put them into videos. And then we included some supplemental reading if you want to do that, but also like a quiz. So basically you watch it, you get the general idea, you take a quiz. Then the hope is that you would also be working with the company owner or a trainer mentor, and actually get a chance to demonstrate that skill in the field.
Right.
And that's where I think I would love to delve into. A lot of people have excuses, and you certainly didn't use any excuses like I don't have a shop. Um, my my thought process is that it's not about having a shop or not having a shop. It's more the mindset of, are you willing to set aside time to just focus on training?
Yeah.
So are you willing to take 4 hours of the new person's first day, or, however many days, and actually just tell yourself, we might not get a lot of productivity done, but the
Mhm.
more I train this person, the more likely they're going to turn around and be profitable for me once they are set free.
Right. Yeah, it's an
So,
investment at that point, thinking of it as an investment as opposed to the lost time of those 4 or 5 hours that you're taking of non-production time to train them, to have them go through the painter training that PCA offers online, and then to reinforce that with actually doing it. And I really, really like that approach, because by having somebody watch a video, having them answer questions, and then having them perform the task in the field, or the trend that I was alluding to was, I've been seeing a lot of contractors, they're actually designating areas in their shop as their training facility, where they have mock-up walls, mock-up kitchens. They'll put crown molding and baseboards or like all these different real life scenarios that you would work on. But because they're able to either have a trainer or the owner of the company themselves to be able to train, their people are still in the field earning money for the company, but now we're able to take somebody in a lower pressure environment, and where the stakes aren't as high, where they could make a mess up and have an oops, and a customer's not going to be standing over their shoulder watching this mistake happen. And I think it's fascinating. I know that with the mechanical industries, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, drain cleaning, garage doors, there's all of these companies, multi-million dollar companies. That's what they're doing. And this is just another thing that I feel like the painting industry is being led by PCA to go towards, is that model, to where we're taking the time to show ourselves as professionals, to not train in a paying client's home, and to train, to really take training, to make that an important thing to do. So I've really enjoyed it. I know, I'll tell you how, with one of my direct hires that I had, his name was Josue. It was nice to be able to sit him down, and I would just have him go through a couple of the modules every week, and then by the time we were done with the curriculum, he was able to take the test. We made sure that he passed them. If he had any questions, we kind of talked about it. I asked him, and then I kind of like quizzed him, but just like, hey, what kind of stood out to you? Because we were doing this in parallel with field training as well. One of the things that he commented about the PCA training is that he said that all the information that was on PCA training was reinforcing all the stuff that we were actually learning in the field. So that did a couple things. One, it made the paint professor, my company, come across as being more professional, more professionalized. And then it also gave me a boost of confidence that I am doing things the right way, aligned with what our industry standard, the gold standard in the industry, is saying. And then another thing that he pointed out was that it was also going over some of the details that me as a trainer, and I've had about 2 decades of experience in construction and the painting field, stuff that I kind of like take for granted or that I've glazed over, or I wouldn't give him further information because that's just stuff that I assume everybody knows because I've known it for so long. So that was another thing that he said that he really enjoyed from the content that you guys provided, was not only did it reinforce what we were doing, but it also supplemented the stuff that I forgot because I don't have an official training process or an onboarding plan. I was still kind of shooting from the hip, but it was nice to have that resource with PCA and their training.
Yeah, that's so great. And no endeavor in terms of putting together that training is a solo endeavor. There's always a village involved. And so, interestingly, a lot of the feedback I would get either through the committee who is reviewing this or others was what you said, like, wait a minute, we didn't back up enough and cover this or talk about this. And so while I was really intentional about trying to explain the why of each step, I had other eyes on it who were telling me, but wait a minute, go back a step, and that thing that you just take for granted, we have to put that in there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and you guys really nailed it. And then what was so walking through the curriculum that you have, you said that there's questions or a quiz to take. How does that work? How does that tie into the videos? Can you explain a little bit about how that part works?
Sure. So first of all, you have 7 courses to choose from. First of all, there's a broad introduction to painting. It covers everything. It's called the Trade Best Practice Series. It's great if your person just really is new to the trade or within that first year. And then you have 3 interior courses and 3 exterior courses to choose from, and those are level 1, 2, and 3. So depending on where, let's say you specialize in exteriors, so you just want your person to watch the exterior part, you have a couple options. One is that you enroll them in the online course using their email, and perhaps you can let them do a password, or you can set up a universal password for your company, and then you can always go in and see the progress. But basically, they would have the course in front of them, watch the video, look at whatever other material or photos might be involved, and then immediately, each course has 8 topics. So if they were, learning how to remove hardware from doors or cabinets, they would take the quiz on just that. And it's really only 4 questions. I wasn't so concerned about did people have recall as much as let's encourage them now to try this, and so every video ends with, now you try it. And that's that encouragement for hopefully someone to watch over them to try the skill. So basically, after they get through the 8 topics of that level, and each one has a 4-question quiz, then they earn this certificate that says you've gone through the level 1 interior course. There is another way to approach this if you're a painting contractor.
Okay.
Let's say you only want to train, maybe these are existing crew members, on the drywall patch that's called the butterfly patch or the California patch. Let's say that's all you want to focus on because you guys have been having a lot of those doorknob holes in the drywall. And you can go on PCA's media platform called PCA Overdrive.
Okay.
And you can get there through, going on the website, which is called PCAoverdrive.org, or you can go into your phone and download the PCA Overdrive app. Anybody can do this because some of the material is locked and only available to paying subscribers or members, but all of the painter training material is free to anyone in the public. So let's
Wow.
say you want to just go on there and watch that butterfly patch video or show it for the whole crew on a bigger screen. You can just go in and show that video, and then everybody can have their little piece of sheetrock and practice the butterfly patch. So it can be approached from different angles. So one
Hmm.
way is, like I said, through the online course system, but the other way is just on our media platform. It's just like YouTube. You
Yeah.
just go there and you find the video. If you were even in the field and you had to pull it up on your phone, like you wanted to review how to do that butterfly patch, any painter could pull that up on their phone.
And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the education approach of the PCA, because from PCA's standpoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are looking to provide content and material that is industry specific to reinforce what we're already doing in the field, just like Josue experienced with my company. You're not reinventing stuff. You're trying to reinforce the things. But some people, just like you kind of touched on at the very beginning of this episode, is people learn in different ways. And as teachers or as business owners who are maybe not necessarily the ideal candidate to be a teacher, we have a tendency to teach the way that we want to learn. And we forget that we need to teach the way that our employee or our associate or team member, the way that they need to learn in order for them to retain this in a fast enough manner for them to be productive. Because at the end of the day, that's the whole point of this investment. And to be able to have hands-on in-field experience with the trainer, with the company, but also to be able to visualize it on, on the app or on the website through our phone. We have the video portion, but then we also have the written portion, and that's where the test comes in. So you guys have really thought this through to where you're hitting any type of learner and really, really like speaking to them. So it's for all walks of life, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to start closing in on this skills gap that we're seeing, is to be able to cast a broader net. And there's only so many qualified painters out there in the US right now, and there's not enough to meet the demand. So in order for us to hit that skills gap, we have to just find decent human beings, like Slavic says all the time, decent human beings, or I've even heard happy human beings. Like, we need to find those people and then meet them where they're at to bring them to where we need them to be. And PCA's done a great job with this training, with the training modules of being able to hit all these different platforms, whether it's written and visual with reading, whether it's visual with audio and video, and then couple that with the in-field training that the companies provide. So I've really enjoyed it. And another thing that I want to mention, I think I actually shared this story with Marcia. I don't know if it got up the chain to you or not, but when Josue, my employee, when he completed the training, I physically, the next day I showed up to work, because essentially what I did was I said, hey, you're going to be an apprentice for me, but your probationary period or your learning period is going to be defined by these modules. So it was about 3 weeks that I had estimated that it would take for him to complete this, but still get plenty of time in field to learn these things. And then when he was done and he completed all of them, I printed out the certificate of completion, and it had his name on it. And it was literally just a sheet of paper. It was a 9 by 11.5 sheet of paper, and I printed it in color. And when he showed up to work that very next day, I made a big deal about it. I set up a tripod, And I handed him the paper. I put it in a manila envelope, but I handed it to him. And then I also gave him his first set of painter tools. And those were his tools instead of just borrowing mine. Those were his tools that he could keep. And making a big deal out of that piece of paper that's a certificate with their name on it totally changed his demeanor. Like, he was doing well. He really stepped up from that point on. He really took ownership and even more pride in everything that he was doing. So if you're using this painter training, don't gloss over or just send a digital copy of that certificate. Like, it really means a lot to someone who, in his case, didn't even know, what the different screwdrivers were and things like that. Like, we were training him literally from being as green as you can be, and how much it meant to him to hold that certificate at the end of 3 weeks. It was pretty powerful.
Oh my gosh, that is so great.
Yeah.
I mean, I can picture the photos on Instagram now where everybody has their certificate and they're holding it up. I think that something that you and I, Christian, have talked about before is imbuing this process of coming onto a new company and learning these skills with dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And what you just described was so dignifying. And I can't even imagine how that, we talk about wanting to elevate the industry. Well, it starts there at ground zero. We have to elevate it from the first day these new people are starting in our companies, and elevate the experience that they have that first day, and elevate the experience they have that first week and 2 week and 3 week. And then the certificate thing. I just love that.
Yeah. No, it was pretty powerful. After I'll have to show you, because it's on my Instagram. I have a picture of like the certificate ceremony, as you should call it. I have a picture of that on my Instagram because it meant a lot to me that he. I heard one time it was a plumbing contractor. He said that we have to look out for our people because every single day they vote for us with their feet. And it was interesting that he said that because they could choose to get up in the morning and walk to any employer, but their feet are leading them to us. So like, we have to, there's a responsibility with that. Whatever level they're at, whether they're super green or further in, they're still choosing to work with us. So like, we have to show exactly what you're saying, a level of dignity, a level of respect to the people who choose to work for us and with us. I think it's just incredibly important.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And another way that I think I tried to imbue this program with some dignity is just the sequence and the order. Because if you're trying to train someone based off how-to videos, there's probably nowhere you can go on YouTube and find every step of the way, like from smallest skill, like how to open a paint can and here's the tools you need to,
right.
You're repairing drywall. And so I think that's really something important that people need to know is that we've put this in order for you. It's here. The sequence is here. And it says, it's laid out and easy, and you can add to it, of course, and you probably have other skills that are special to your company, but this really is the basics. And
Mm-hmm.
It was based on the Craftsman operating procedures, which were just decades of work that the best minds in painting put into what is the best procedure for completing XYZ skill,
Right.
So, yeah, that is so great.
Yeah. So, I think the title of this episode is going to be the onboarding plan. So with that in mind, I kind of told you that even though I had a quote unquote plan, a lot of it was shooting from the hip. Um, with the tools that PCA has to offer, would you be able to outline, couple that with your onboarding process that you used in your company? Can you kind of merge those together? And what would that plan look like? Like an actual plan, not just shooting from the hip, or hey, here's overdrive, go for it. Like what does that look like? When does the actual hands-on play into it? How far should someone go with the modules? Like lay it on us. How would Julie run this in her painting company today?
Sure. First of all, I think it's always good to draw up some kind of an agenda for your first day, but I would say even more so for your first week or two with a new hire.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way, the first day should be very tightly hour by hour planned. And it doesn't matter the experience level, you're still always going to have to fill out certain forms. You're going to have to explain certain things. Maybe you have an employee handbook. Maybe you have that on a PowerPoint. You're probably going to have several required safety topics that you need to
Mm-hmm.
go over. For us, we always did we issued respirators because we were still working with fairly harsh chemicals,
Okay.
and we had to do a fit test. And so there were those kinds of just whatever your company requires, that's got to get done. And I didn't assign myself as the owner to that. I would typically take our service manager or someone else in the field, a more experienced crew leader, and say, here's the things that they have to get through, make sure they get through them. And then my advice for everyone, and this is a part of the pre-planning process, choose 3 to 5 skills that are absolutely essential to your field, whatever your field looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on whether you do interior or you do exterior work, I would base it on broadly on that. If you're more focused on one over the other, what are the most 3 to 5 critical prep skills that come up all the time?
Right.
Is it bagging off windows or with a hand masker? Is it bagging off cabinet openings? Is it masking floors? It likely has something to do with baseboard trim. Once you've decided on the most critical skills, that sort of informs, in my opinion, the rest of your day. Is you should drill on those 3 to
Mm-hmm.
5 skills. And I know you say that you don't like to use job sites, but I think if it can be done, if you check in with the homeowner, let them know what you're doing. We're just going to be practicing bagging off this window with this new hire. I think it can be done on a job site. Obviously, a shop is really nice. And we did have a whole kitchen cabinet station because
Oh, wow.
we were cabinet refinishers. So we were drilling constantly on how to prep those cabinets, how to remove the hardware. Those were just our essential skills. And we wouldn't let, honestly, anyone out to the field until they were fairly efficient, not quick, but accurate with taping off base trim or bagging cabinet openings. That was
Mm-hmm.
like a big deal for us. And along with that, they're learning, of course, if they're super new, how to even assemble a hand masker.
Right.
So I think it's all about creating your own onboarding plan, but putting some thought into it ahead of time. Then creating a schedule for day one. Maybe you don't have a lot of time, that day. It depends. Who can you pass this person off to and what could they maybe get accomplished with that person? But don't just send them to a crew. I feel so sorry for crew leaders that are receiving a new person. They don't necessarily know what skills they have. Maybe they have no skills. And now they have to figure out what they're going to do with that person, and nobody gave them a plan.
Mm.
So I think it's just the more you can get on top of it and have a plan. And a lot of companies I talk to, they say when they use, like, for example, the online portion, obviously that could happen all in one day. It's feasible to get through those courses in a day, or they tell the employee to do it at home, but they compensate them in different ways. They either, when it's finished, you get a 50 cent an hour raise, or when it's finished, this is like a monetary bonus you get. Or
Right.
if they want them to do it off hours, they still have to find a way to incentivize them to get the coursework done.
Right.
So,
Well, and also
yeah,
following local and federal labor laws with that as well. I know for myself,
absolutely.
I gave my guys the option that they could either come in and then do it on the job site, so like they could be in the trailer, or if we were in the shop, they could do it in the shop if they wanted to, or I'd give them an hour and a half to do a certain block, but instead of them showing up at 7:30, they'd come in at 9, and they just needed to make sure that that was done in order for them to get paid for that hour and a half, even though they weren't physically in my view to do it.
Well, there's a
Which
lot of
I
fear.
think it's important to make sure you're paying somebody to do it, because why? I mean, it's the law, first of all, but again, it goes back to that investment in caring for them. I'm going to require you to do 10 hours of training, but I'm not going to pay you for it.
Mhm.
That doesn't seem right.
I know, but we do have 50 states, and so I hopefully everyone's checking their labor laws that are of whether you can ask an employee to do something educational off hours, and how you reimburse them. But I 100% agree. You should pay them, because what I was going to say is there's this fear that we're paying them too much money to just be sitting there taking a course or watching a video, when the truth is that, like you said earlier, we're investing,
Yeah.
and you should see a return on that investment once they're in the field, because the alternative is that you don't do this and they just fumble around and waste how many hours in the field,
Hmm.
you know, not knowing how to do it or how your company expects it done. So
Yeah. And
I
oh,
agree.
and the other thing too is with employee retention, because we've kind of touched on bringing in onboarding somebody, but by having a professionalized onboarding plan and executing that onboarding plan, whether it's the owner, or like with your suggestion, a crew leader, or an operations leader, someone in that position, that they're going to have a checklist, or they're going to have a curriculum that they're going to follow and be able to execute. So now, not only are we showing ourselves to be a professionalized painting company, but we're also not skipping over things. It'd be no different than following a painting procedure. You're not going to put a top coat on before you start priming, or you're not going to start sanding a cabinet before you degrease it. It's totally going to change what happens in the end. And if every time you go to do a cabinet process or painting a wall process, you do it different and you're always getting slightly different results, you don't know what to change. But if you do things consistently in a specific order of operations, just like we would with a cabinet, we need to adapt that mentality when it comes to our onboarding process, because now you can take the data from that and say, hey, we are consistently sending people into the field and they are lacking this. Or we are consistently sending people into the field way too late and they know too much, like we're not sending them in soon enough to where they're able to get that hands-on experience along with that. But if we're always doing it differently in a different order of operations, there's no data to be able to track as far as that goes. So having exactly what you said, having a plan is the plan, right?
Mhm.
And just like with any our business, another word for our business, I talked about this with Chris Moore, is another word for business is organization. And the root word for that is organism. These are living, breathing things. These are people that we're dealing with. Our company, what our company looks like today is going to be different from what it looks like a year from now or a year ago. So like these are different, it's constantly moving, constantly shifting. So for us to be so rigid in a specific necessarily training, if it's not working, or if we've outgrown that training process, like let's say you're adding a new service that you're offering your clients, you're going to need to adapt your training process to go through that. Or something as simple as like right now in my business, I'm going from using a urethanized trim enamel for cabinets, and I'm stepping up to using a 2K poly on it. That's totally changing everything. Like instead of leaving my paint sprayer wet, I better clean that thing out. Otherwise I'm going to be out of paint sprayer, So, no, I think that's super important and having that plan. No,
I agree because it's part of that dignity thing. And I remember, when we were doing our training center and planning back then, one of the lower jobs on the spectrum, when we thought about low jobs on the spectrum, McDonald's would always come to mind. But I even knew that no one walked into their first day of work at McDonald's without being fully trained. There was a plan, there was a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, why weren't we doing that in our trade? It made no sense to me.
Yeah.
So I think it is all about the plan. And another interesting benefit to this, depending on the skill level of the people that are coming in, is that in training them to do something, they might actually show you something that they learned somewhere else that's actually an improvement on what you're doing.
Mm.
And then you have that option of like adopting something new and better that you're learning from these, new employees, these new hires. So sometimes, my painters that were coming in, the over $20 an hour, over 25, whatever earners were often, even though we put them through the training process, or I shouldn't say often, but occasionally would show us something that we're like, okay, that's going to be the new way we do it. We do it here. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never thought of you typically think with an experienced guy, you would probably just, I'm sure the tendency is to just skip over, glaze over some of those things. Let's just Christmas tree the answers, right? When it comes to our training process with somebody who's experienced. But I'm sure even from their standpoint, they're probably thinking, I've been painting for 5, 10, however many years I've been doing. I'm not going to sit through your training process. But what a fantastic approach to say, hey, we would like for you to go through our training process, not only so that you know how we do things, but really we would love for you to be almost like a process engineer at that point. And if there's anything different from our process that you do that works, that you found has been a benefit, we'd love to get some feedback and share it and actually be open to hearing that. And I think that a lot of times when you're reevaluating your process, as long as you can do it as good or better than the original step, faster and in a safe manner, then, at the end of the day, whether it's the original process or the new process, the stopwatch is going to matter. If you get as good or better results in a safe manner, then the stopwatch wins. And we got to take ego out of that. But no, that's a fantastic approach.
You made me think of it when you talked about switching products, because sometimes we'll switch to a product that'll buy us a lot more efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be the same thing with prep processes. Ever so often, you'll find a prep process that'll increase your speed and efficiency. So it's like you said, like being a process engineer.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Julie, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, that we were able to dissect the onboarding plan, and also to be able to talk about the resources available to all, whether you're a member of PCA or not, and also even more so when people do become members of PCA. Is there anything that we haven't touched over today, or I'd love to have you? I think we have a lot more to talk about, but just the onboarding plan, I think we needed to really dedicate just one episode to this. So, especially with the education that PCA is offering, and going forward with in the future, I would love to have you on and talk about more subjects. But is there anything else on the onboarding, or maybe a little teaser, something new that's going to be coming out that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, sure. A couple things. One thing is that make tools and tool distribution part of your onboarding plan. Don't make the new person decide how they're going to obtain their tools that they're going to need for the job. Decide for them. You're either going to buy them and they're going to maybe have paycheck deductions, or you're going to require them to buy them. But make tools and tool distribution consistent and systematic, and part of the onboarding process. In terms of something that's coming soon with PCA, is accompanying these courses and these videos, I also have a skill scorecard. So for level 1 painter, these are all the skills that they should have, and then you can rate them. And the thing that this does for the contractor is they can assign a wage range to each, scorecard.
Right.
So it helps the painter see that there is a career ladder. It helps the contractor be more consistent with doing evaluations and keeping wages accurate with actual skill level. And again, takes away one of those pain points. So that's going to be a downloadable Excel sheet that you'll be able to get from PCA fairly soon, and you'll see it on our painter training page.
That's going to be a fantastic resource, because really what that's doing is it's taking emotion and awkwardness out of the I guess it'd be the goal setting and review process that we all should have in place when we're not only onboarding but also retaining our employees. Going back to that, we're the central theme of this podcast is professionalization in the painting organization, right? Or in the painting industry, and that's just going to add to it. And for me, when I was an employee, there was nothing that was more frustrating to me than knowing that I outworked everybody around me, but because I was the new guy, I was making less. And rather to have these specific skills that I need to master, that now I don't have to wait 9.5 months in order to get that, to earn that income. I can earn it now because I've been able to check it. And it's almost, I could see by being upfront with your employees on this and showing them that path, now they have a checklist that they're going to work towards and say, hey, come in and say, hey, Christian, I'm 80% of the way done with my checklist over here. Can you verify? What do I need to, work on? Or like, be really excited. Hey, Christian, I've completed everything on Painter 1. Now I'm going to start working on the Painter 2 stuff. So now you're getting their engagement. They're empowered to really take control of their training process from that standpoint, which with all the stuff that we have on our plates as small business owners or smaller business owners, how awesome is that we have people who are fighting to be better, not only for our company and our clients, but more importantly for themselves. I think that's fantastic.
Absolutely. So be watching on that
will do.
PCApainted.org website. It'll be on the education page.
Awesome. Well, Julie, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to introduce us to some of these and kind of break things down. If anybody has any questions after hearing this, what's the best way to get a hold of you, to get a hold of PCA? Feel free to give us the emails, the websites, the phone numbers, and I will be sure to link them down in the description.
That's perfect. Thanks so much, Christian. This was great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Julie.